Hey, this is Kyle Kunkel and Garth Schultheis with the Bear Fruit Show, going live talking about failure, success stories in business, real estate, and life. So I'm super excited to interview Garth and just talk a little bit about what's made him successful, what's been maybe the hardships or challenges that he's gone through. So Garth Schultheis is when part of this show is I had a mentor once tell me find someone with fruit on the tree and go learn from them. So part of the reason why I was attracted to learning from Garth is just his investments. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today is investing in multifamily. And I saw fruit on the tree and I was like, that guy's done something right. How can I learn from him? And so it's been great learning from him. So some of the things we're going to go over today, Garth's successes and failures and his top 3 accomplishments that he's talked about or going to talk about is, one is saving his marriage and learning to love again. 2 is going from bankruptcy to the current net worth of $11 million, and then overcoming the fear of failures and leveraging my experience, my intellectual assets, my sphere of influence to rebuild his life in real estate, investing, and relationships. So
hey, that sounded pretty good.
That does sound good, huh? So tell me a little bit about yourself, Garth. Let's tell me who you are. Tell me about your family, and just kind of a little bit about your story.
Yeah, I'm originally from Indiana, so I still go by I'm a Hoosier. But I left there as soon as I can, honestly, because I wanted to get to the mountains. And so I had an epiphany one day as I better do it when I'm young. So I did it when I was young. So it was right after college. Moved out here, met my wife up in Fort Collins, and then moved down to Durango in 1994. And we've been here ever since. So it's I'm 52 years old, and I have my wife and I also have, my wife's name is Kirsten. We have 2 children, Skylar and Brooke. And my daughter, Brooke, she's 27 and she is married. I'm sorry, she's 25. Her husband's 27. And I have a grandson. So I'm now
Grandpa.
I'm a grand.
Nice.
I'm Papa.
Papa.
Yeah. And my son's 21. So really proud of both my kids, and they still live in Durango. So it's great. Get to be around them. Get to see my grandson just about every day.
Nice. That's awesome.
So yeah.
Cool. And then tell me, how did you get into real estate? What was that? What did that look like?
My brother dragged me into real estate while I was still in college. So I have an older brother. He's 9 years older than me. And so that's a big difference. But when I was actually a sophomore in college, he was like, Garth, we got to do this. Because he was studying about how to be an investor, all those books. I think it was Robert Allen about how to buy real estate with no money down and all this stuff, and which we did. And he was ahead of the game. He was ahead of me. I was still in college, but he had bought a couple of duplexes. Saw that those duplexes really weren't going to give him an income. It might be a good investment, but so he decided he needed to increase his economy of scale, and he was actually able to buy I think it was 29 units and then another 17 units from the same guy up in Logansport, Indiana. And it was right about that time when he was like, you should come do this with me. And so I would work with him in the summers, in college, and kind of help him do maintenance and management and stuff like that. But then after college, instead of getting a job, it was probably the smartest thing I ever did, is even though it was kind of humbling, all my friends were getting like, I got this job, I'm working in Chicago, or I'm going to New York. I just moved in with my brother and his wife and new little baby, and did maintenance with my brother.
Nice.
And because it wasn't probably the best purchase in hindsight, because it really didn't make any money unless we did everything.
Yeah.
So mow the 4 acres, do all that. But I helped them. So, and that's helped me because I learned kind of from the ground up what it takes to manage property. We went on a ski trip to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And it was during that time when we looked at each other and said, why don't we live in a place like this? And that's when we made the decision. And so within a year, we were out in Colorado, and that was in 92 when we first showed up. And, maybe you wouldn't know, and other people, because that was right after. And then, honestly, we didn't know either. It's only like studied it later. So we were just young and dumb and willing to take risks, and didn't seem like anybody else was in the marketplace, because they really weren't. Because Reagan had changed the tax laws in '86, and I won't go into all the details of that, but it just shut down commercial construction, multifamily construction. And it so everybody was just trying to survive over the next 6 or 7 years. We arrived in 1992. I think that's like 6 or 7 years later. And that's why everybody they were scared to get into multifamily. And so it was an easy time for us to learn. We were just lucky. And well, I would say I'm lucky because I had an older brother. He knew a lot more than I did at the time. So I just followed him. And also we were lucky with the timing of the market.
Yeah.
And when we got in, because we could, you could work on a deal for 6 months and not worry about it going under contract. So and the sellers were willing to do seller carry, every deal we did. So we got like 42 units in Fort Collins. And I would say, so that's how I got into it here in Colorado. We ended up buying 50 units up in Cheyenne, Wyoming, another 50 units down in Albuquerque, and then buying 98 units in Durango, Colorado during this time frame. And then we sold, everything was sold by 1997. So I had a little bag of money, and one of the things I learned about that is, the worst thing I did was sell, because I wish we still had Campus Park Apartments there in Fort Collins. Don't care about the Cheyenne property or the Albuquerque property, but the Durango property would have been worth so much. I could have just drank beer and sat on the couch for the last 20 years and made more money than selling it at that time, which we thought was at a crazy price. Anyways, but that's how I got into selling real estate, because we were in Durango, Colorado. We had been there a couple of years, which is right here. And my wife and I were like, how do we stay in Durango? Because I had sold all my income.
Yeah.
I had a little bag of money. And I'm like, oh, okay, what am I going to do? I haven't done anything except management and own real estate since I got out of college. So I looked around and I saw some people making 6 figures in real estate that I thought I was at least as smart as them. And I said, hey, I can sell real estate.
Yeah.
With the full intention of getting back into multifamily. But I kind of spent my nest egg, trying to make it in sales. But I wouldn't trade it. I'm glad I didn't sit on the couch. Actually, it would have been impossible. There's no way I could have just sat on the couch for 20 years. But so I learned so much. And then you meet so many cool people, part of organizations, part of a business. I had opportunity to get some ownership in the real estate company. It was Prudential at the time. And so I learned a lot with, in those board meetings, bad board meetings, good board meetings, going through ups and downs in the market. 2006 was, extremely hard for me. But anyways, I know your question was how to get into it. So that was the long version.
Way. So you got there. And,
yeah.
And that's kind of the reason why I got into real estate, to be honest. It was something where I thought, because it was something that I was like, hey, it can create cash flow, it can create investing in real estate. So, but when I'm first getting started in real estate, you're going to make sales, you're going to do the thing, but I don't want to do this for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Unless I really have to. I mean, it'd be more like, hey, how can I make some money and how can I put that back into real estate and create cash flow and something that's going to be, wealth building for my family. So yeah. That's kind of what attracted me to real estate. Wasn't just selling, because that's just a rat race. That's just chasing the next piece of cheese, and I don't want to do that.
You like that cheese though.
It does taste good when you get it. So.
Well, that's an interesting point. I'm going to interrupt you.
Go for it.
But because that's one of the mistakes I did. It was so I got into sales, started making good money. This was I got in 1997, the latter part of 97. Around 2000, the market really started picking up, and I started doing well in sales. And then when prices are going up, it's hard to find good income property. And so, but I was always looking. But couldn't make these numbers crunch unless you flip them or you condominiumize them. And so I slid into unaware. I just thought, well, yeah, we'll flip these. We'll find another one, or I'll build up enough cash, and then I'll buy one for an income property. But they're hard to find. I mean, you can go out there and buy a bunch of real estate, and majority of them are going to take you down. Because just owning real estate isn't the key.
So how do you find those properties? What does that look like? I mean, I know you're still doing it now.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, now it's more beneficial because people know who I am, and they know that I'm in multifamily. So the past couple of deals, they kind of came to me because they just pick up the phone, seller does, before they put it on the market, and they said, "Hey, are you interested in buying this, or do you have partners?" And so, yes is the answer. And and let me look at the numbers. If the numbers work, we're
so
buyers.
it built something. You built yourself or positioned yourself as someone in multifamily, and so it's the law of attraction. You just start to attract those.
Yes.
Eventually.
Yeah. And then you look at those deals, and but yeah, how I got pinched in 2008-9. It's because I was heavily into development, and I had made a lot of money since 2000 to 2007. But I had just rolled over that money, and I was in 2 big developments. And when the crash came, the big development I was in, the bank stopped sending money for construction. And so we just owed the $9 million. And I said, well, we can't keep paying, we owe you $9 million and the $35,000 a month in payment. That's contingent on us selling things. And if we have no sales, we can't pay you. And they said, well, you still owe the money. So, and then the Deep Pockets partner I had, what I learned some hard lessons real fast is, he had all his money in a trust. So you can't touch that. He claimed bankruptcy like that.
Yeah.
Left me and the builder holding the bag. And then my builder, he claimed bankruptcy shortly thereafter. And then about 5 years later, I finally did, because I was trying to work it out. And then it came to the conclusion of there's nothing left to do except get bankruptcy, which I was trying so hard not to do. But I wish I would have done it 5 years sooner.
What was the fear, or was it an ego thing with
all the above? Because you think, oh my gosh, it's going to ruin my credit, which it kind of does. I won't be able. I want to be able to pay my debts and that kind of thing. One thing that really helped me with that is, bankruptcy and the law of bankruptcy actually came from biblical principles.
Okay.
The principle of Jubilee. A lot of people that go to church and stuff like that, they go, he claimed bankruptcy, he should pay his bills. But, there's a reason we left England, at least the Pilgrims did. Because, back in Europe in those days, before America existed, if you owed money, you just went to debtor's prison. And you stayed there until you paid it off. Or your family paid it off. I would still be in debtor's prison if we didn't have bankruptcy laws that allow you to reset. There's a price. Basically, you say, okay, I owe $9 million. I have, let's see here, I got 100,000. Okay, we take that, and the rest is forgiven. And then you got to mark on your credit for 7 years, but you can reset.
Yeah. So that's a big reset from owing, $9 million. And
of course, they take back the property.
They took everything. Yeah.
That's why the banks, they have collateral. Those sorts of things. So it wasn't like they were out $9 million.
No, they got their money.
Yeah, they make sure they're okay. they make sure that they're okay. But yeah, I was forced to do that, and but it was a really humbling time, and that's one of the things I had to overcome fear. Yeah. At that point, and because it's like, oh my gosh, I just blew my whole life. Everything I've done is gone. Everything I've been working towards, because those two big developments, that was going to be it. I was going to sell that, make $7 million, roll that into some apartments. Yep. And off into the sunset. And then I was called up short. Yeah. Yeah. Dang. That's So I guess what you learned a lot through that. And one of the things you kind of mentioned was, having your money in a trust and stuff like that. Yeah. And also wishing you would have just did bankruptcy 5 years sooner instead of trying to fight through it, right? That kind of stuff. And then you talked about overcoming the fear of, getting started again. What did that look like, and what were some of the things that you actually had to overcome? Yeah. So I was about 40 at the time. I'm 52 now. And so I had to come to the realization, and really it was about, I spent a lot of time with prayer, talking to God, being angry at God, angry at myself. Mm-hmm. And I was also going through, a lot of times financial situations expose other issues, like in my marriage, in other relationships. Yeah. Anyway, so all this was being exposed in my life, and I was found wanting. However, thanks to God's grace and everything, my wife and I were able to work out our marriage. We're still married, and we're happily married.
Which is a difference,
Yes, that's a huge difference. Married, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's a whole other topic, but it's worth noting.
Yeah,
and to be transparent, because I want to be transparent about everything.
Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, the overcoming the fear was a big thing, and I remember just sitting there thinking, I don't want to make another mistake. I can't afford to make another mistake, and I'm starting over
from zero.
But then I realized, honestly, I'm not starting from zero, maybe financially, but I realized at 40 years old, I know I just kind of evaluated what I had done wrong. And I that's when I figured out, yeah, that's what I did wrong. I started just I was speculating on deals rather than investing in deals.
Okay, help me understand that a little bit more.
So, and it's easy. So, and we're in this kind of market right now where everything's just going up sky high, And one of the things you should stop and go, this should make you think, is when the second grade teacher is buying property. And you hear them talking about in the grocery store and go, I bought this property I sold last year and I sold it this year. I made $100,000. When the market's going up, kind of like the crypto market right now, it's easy to be self-absorbed and say, wow, I am so smart. Aren't I a good investor? And then, and not remember God is who blesses you and finances. And to be honest, I think I was started getting full of pride, during the good years, and I started thinking, well, I'm pretty good, I'm a pretty good investor, and and here's the money to prove it. But when the market turned, then you're like, you realize, well, these things can happen. I had never seen a downturn in my career at that point. So, anyways, but when I evaluate it, so I'm afraid of making another mistake, afraid of doing these things. But then I realized that was my problem. I didn't stay. So my brother, on the other hand, he always stayed in multifamily. He was he wasn't touched by the crash. So I started studying multifamily again and remembering, oh yeah, there's a reason why that's a good asset class. And then I said, I'm going to focus on this.
Yeah.
Because over the years, I had gotten into rentals.
Yeah.
But it was based on speculation, like, oh, hey, I'll buy that, and it's going to cost me $500 a month over and above the rent. But in 2 years, it's going to be worth, I'm going to make $200,000.
Yeah.
But I don't actually know that. I'm speculating that it will.
Sure.
Where
you're like
the stuff that I'm
assuming.
Yeah. And so right now, one of the things that is fun to say, like, on paper, I'm worth over $11 million right now.
Sure.
If the market turns tomorrow, I might be worth $5 million. But those are just numbers on paper. That's based on a sales price.
Yeah.
Of what it's worth right now. But I honestly don't care what the value is of like the apartments that I own now. What I care about is the income. Because because there's two different markets. Like the apartment multifamily market does not run the same with houses and residential. And that's why I say, you can buy a bunch of houses. That's not going to make you rich. You might get lucky and sell them for more if that's what you're doing, but that's not where I make my money, by selling them.
So you don't make your money by selling the houses. You make them through the multifamily.
Through
the income.
Yeah, through the monthly income. So, if I can have an income of $50,000 a month, and then I'm an idiot and I blow it all in a month, next month, I still have $50,000 coming in.
Okay. So it's cash flow. Help me understand.
Cash flow.
Yep.
Yeah, that's huge. And then that's why I like multifamily. That asset class is, you can adjust to markets very quickly. I've owned commercial buildings. I've had commercial tenants, and I actually owned one during the downturn. And so we had really high rents, $20 a foot. We had this medical staff and that sort of thing, medical offices. But then when the market turned, commercial, rents go down sometimes, and a lot of times in commercial space. So we had to renegotiate leases, that are 5 years out, 3 years out, with less money. Where, if that makes sense, compare that to apartments. If we have downturn and the demand for rents is less, So say I have 100 units and I've rented them all out for $1,000 a unit, and then the market goes to 800. Well, all my leases aren't coming due on the same day of the year.
Okay.
So they're spread out through the year. And so say the market turns because they're building another apartment complex in town, so the rents are less.
Yeah.
Well, the rent, and I got 3 apartments coming up out of 100. Well, yeah, we can lower those to $800 and get them rented out. And it's not the whole place being changed.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
And then same with, you see it now in how things are turning, like commercial is just changing. People can work from anywhere, so they don't need to be in their offices. They don't need to be in the buildings. Think about multifamily, someone's always going to need a place to stay. Yeah. And they're always going to need a roof over your head.
And not every market is a good market to buy apartments in.
Yeah.
But I would say our market,
specifically
I've been here since the 90s, and I've never seen a year or a day where it's bad to own rentals. And so that was part of my thing too, is go with what I know. And so overcoming that fear was like, well, hey, I actually know this. And number 2, I know how to buy these. I know how to look at the income. I know how to run them. I know how to do the management.
Okay.
And I just knew I needed to get out of the rat race of trying to, pay my bills and do all that. I needed to, and so I forced myself to even back off of the foreclosure business that I had formed at the time. Not going out to the properties and running the crews, but back off of that. Let them run the crews. I make less money that day, that month, that year, but I had to set aside time to start looking at deals. And so I just intentionally focused on that.
Okay.
Like looking at deals. And then I found, it was actually a little hotel that turned everything around for us.
Okay.
So, but when I was first, and I was going to turn them into apartments and just make, bring in an extra $30,000 a year. But I thought, okay, that's a start. That's $30,000 that can work for me when I'm sleeping. Yeah. And that's that I don't have to chase, and I don't have to get a deal done or clean a foreclosure or whatever. It's like, okay, I can start building from there and then get to 100,000 a year, 200,000, whatever your goals are. So that's how I focused on that.
Nice, cool. I want to go back to some of these because I know we touched on quite a bit of it. So one of your top accomplishments is saving your marriage and learning to love again. You want to share a little bit more about that? And I think being vulnerable is a powerful thing, and hopefully I feel like people can learn from this and they can stand on your shoulders in a sense. They can stand on your ceiling can be their floor. And so I love learning from people like this. So
yeah, and I'm big into that, and I really try to be transparent about that's the number one rule. If you can be transparent with your spouse, if she's your accountability partner or if he's your accountability partner, that's a better place to be. Yeah. So, but where we found ourselves was, we were moving in different directions, and we fell out of love. Most people say, well, then you should just get a divorce because you don't love each other anymore. And my wife would tell you, we couldn't remember that we loved each other at that time. But what we did, we did agree that we loved our kids, and then we did agree that it was worth fighting for. Yeah. The problem was that, we had learned a lot of things about how we didn't communicate correctly. We had actually prided ourselves on communicating because we did talk to each other a lot, but we talked at each other. So learning to listen really helped. And then you could hear and not defend yourself. And, it's like, this is how you hurt me. Because that's basically what happened. We had hurt each other and wounded each other so much that we became guarded to one another, and we were unwilling to open up anymore. And then it's easy to start looking around somewhere else for that love and affection that we all need. We're built for connection. Designed for that. Yeah. Anyways, but we literally sat down, chair in front of each other, and said, "Yeah, I don't love you." Dang. And I know you don't love me. But I remember that, we did love each other at one time, and it's, are you willing to work on this? And because I believe that you can learn to love somebody, and but you got to deal with all these woundings and stuff. So we did a lot of counseling, and there was a lot of cool things, miraculous things that happened. where like a friend of mine, because I didn't have the money at the time to go to counseling, but he just called me and said, hey, I paid for your whole week to go off and get this counseling done. So there was a lot of cool things that God did.
That's awesome.
And so, she's the love of my life now.
That's cool. That's cool.
And so it really was like learning to love again. And we did this one program. It's out in Redding, California. It's called Love After Marriage.
Okay.
It's super powerful.
Yeah.
And so, and we're still working on that,
Sure.
And that's the reality.
Yeah.
You just have to work on your relationship, You only get what you put into it.
Yeah.
And if your love life is weak, it's probably because you haven't been feeding it correctly. So it's kind of like just like working out or anything like that. If someone breaks into your house, if you haven't been eating for 3 weeks and someone breaks into your house and you're like, man, you just beat me up, I'm so weak. It's because you haven't been eating and filling yourself with the right things. So, You're just trying to stay focused on that.
Nice. Like putting in actually working on your relationships. I feel like for me, my struggle is I'm working so hard towards my goals and everything I want to accomplish that sometimes that I forget to work on the most important thing. And me and Megan just had this talk recently, and it's just like, if I get everything I want in life and reach, make all this money and do all these things, but I don't have my wife and kids, then there's no point in it.
Yeah.
It's not. So learning how to accomplish your goals and value and put your family first has to be the number one thing. And learning how to love. And you mentioned learning how to listen and not just defend yourself. And so easy to do that. I think guys, I do it automatically.
Respond out of courage.
You just respond. And it's like, So anyways, that's really cool that you've been able to overcome that and work through that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then the second thing you talked about going through that bankruptcy, and coming
Good
out,
times.
Right. So I think that accomplishment in itself is awesome. And I think one of the things you nailed on was that it's not about, starting from zero. You realize your asset, your value was in yourself.
Yeah.
And what you learned and what you actually, hey, I can do this again. I've done it once. I can do it again. And now I can see the roadblocks or the things that are going to come, and I can avoid those things and get, you're still rolling. So it's super neat to see. It's like, hey, failure, when we learn from our failures, I always say, I never fail, I learn. And so I think when you can learn and go after, and you still have the asset it's not the goal. When you reach your goal, it's not like, oh, I reached my goal. I'm worth this, or I accomplished this. I ran my marathon, or I lost 40 pounds, or whatever it is. It's not necessarily about reaching your goal. It's about learning those things you learned along the way. That's the most valuable thing that you have. And I think you having that, understanding that is super cool. And like you said, overcoming that fear, I think is really neat. So,
where I was, I didn't have cash to buy properties. But what I had experience and I had knowledge.
Yep.
And I had relationships. And so that was one thing that I'm so glad that getting into real estate sales and because you have leverage as a real estate agent, right?
Sure.
Because I have access to the MLS, and I also get a commission on each deal.
Are you going to tell me the secrets of how to invest in real estate right now?
Not right now, but I can share.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that I kind of figured out, because of course, when you're trying to figure out, okay, I have no money, but I have this commission here. So using when I say using, it's not in a bad sense, like I'm gonna step on Kyle to get what I want. I mean, like
your network.
Leveraging your network, and if I can, it's just like when you go to a listing or you go talk to a buyer and you're selling yourself because you believe in yourself, and so. And actually what was cool is a lot of the buyers and sellers that I worked with in the past became my investors and partners, and and we continue that relationship. And those people that I loved working with in the past, I'm like, I'm going to call so-and-so because I know they might be interested in this. And so, but then when you're sitting down and going, okay, John Doe, he's got 50 grand, James so-and-so has 100 grand, all this. And Garth, I have nothing. Oh wait, but I have a commission. That's 3%. And, on this $1 million deal, that's $30,000. So actually I have $30,000.
Great.
So leveraging your relationships, leveraging your past clients, leveraging the good job that you did 10 years ago. Leveraging the commission you have. And then I've been able to leverage the commission even more because if you're in the business, if you're in real estate, you know that there is no standard commission. And so, you could charge 6%, 5%, 10%, and there's a range of things. So, and it's very important if you're going to do this, if you leverage your commission and your relationships to be 100% transparent. So a lot of these deals, I not only use the commission, but I negotiated for a higher commission.
Okay.
And so, of course, if you're the seller and you're like, well, yeah, if you're charging 10% commission above and beyond what I was thinking I was going to pay, then I'm going to adjust the price accordingly. So yeah, you have to make sure it's got to be the right deal. The appraiser needs to know that you're doing that. The seller needs to be okay with it. Your investors need to know, and you need to come to the table with experience. So, part of the things you have to overcome, like you may see a sweet deal for $6 million, but, coming up with $1.2 million, which would be 20% of that, isn't easy for most people. And so you're trying to put together things. And so just as a little hint or a little to look into that is if I can come to the table, even if it's by an increased commission, but now I have $600,000 out of 1.2 that we need, that's a benefit. Plus I'm going to run it. Operations, I know this stuff, so I bring a lot to the table. So not everybody's going to be like, well, that, the pushback you hear is that's not real money. I'm like, well, it will be when we get to the closing.
It's real money.
So, but that's just part of explaining the deal. And not everybody, if you don't want, that's why you be transparent. You don't want to show up at closing and go, what the heck? The 600 you said you were putting down is all, this on the commission
right here. Yeah.
So yeah, you want to explain that just like you would, if you're in the business, you realize when you're asking for a commission, most sellers aren't educated in that, and they think you're going to get paid so much money for this. Then you educate them on, I'm going to do this for you, and if you pay me, and it's based on success fee. It's not based on every hour you put in it. And usually, if you go to the seller in that situation, and say, well, you could pay me $150 an hour, and I'm happy to work. Oh, no. So anyway, so that was a real benefit because I was able to do that. Of course, if you've done any deals, the bankers don't like that, the appraisers don't like that. So there's a lot of people. So but of course, it's not easy.
It's not easy, but
it's not easy doing it. So the last several deals I've done has been after my bankruptcy and still within the 7-year time frame. So my credit's not good. I don't have any money. And so, but I was still able to do multi-million-dollar deals with no money of mine down. Or at least, the commission is my money, but
sure,
the money that I'm bringing to
the deal,
it was created by the deal I'm putting together. And as an investor who's not a real estate agent, it's illegal for you to do that. But as a real estate agent, you can actually use your commission as a down. Now, if you were a buyer and you said, well, I want to do that. So yeah, Mr. Seller, back in the day you could do that, but the regulations of the bank now, you cannot do that.
Okay. So you need your real estate license to be able to take that commission and put it back into the deal.
To my knowledge.
So
there might be somebody else out there, some professional that knows how to do that.
Get into real estate.
I do not. Yeah, that's why real estate's been good to me. Real estate's been good.
So what you're saying is you basically, coming from bankruptcy, had nothing but the knowledge, but what you did was you leveraged your relationships with people. You came in, you used your commission and put it back into the deal, and then you put the deal together and you help manage it, and you own, and you have a higher percentage of ownership, and you were transparent about it, and that's how you've been able to create, your net worth of 11 million at this point.
That's right. Yeah.
And probably gonna, triple that, 10x it in the next couple of years. So, cool. So, some questions we're gonna run through real quick. Tell me a story about, maybe a recent story about putting a deal together and just kind of what that looked like. the hard things, the good things, and just, you know, just the clips of it. But what did that look like?
Yeah,
How
I mean,
did you find it? You know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well,
and you don't have to mention specific names of people or deals, but if you're still,
yeah. Well, and there's certain things. It's only if you worked in our office, I would share it with you, but I don't want to tell the whole world necessarily, because that's the hardest thing to do. The hardest thing in the deal is finding a deal. So you want to find a deal, an off-market deal, because, you know, most people in the investment space, they know if there's anything sitting on LoopNet means that it's a dead deal. It's not a good deal.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily true all the time. I mean, you can find some good deals on LoopNet, but typically, you know, they're not going to last.
Yeah.
And that's the problem too, with, you know, just being an investor and having realtors work for you, because a lot of, you know, if realtors are in the multifamily space, they typically see the value of that, and so they also want to get into it. So I would say a lot of the times the A+++ deals, they never get to the market.
They never get to the market.
They never get to LoopNet.
Yeah.
You know? And they don't hit the MLS. But, you know, being a realtor, you get
kind of the inside
you
scoop.
still get a little bit inside scoop, maybe, with clientele and people. But one of the things I did, like the most recent deal I put together, I'll just say this, there's some advertising that I did that helps build my
credibility.
No, it helps me build my my sphere of influence, and, you know, knowing who the sellers and buyers are in the area who want to buy multifamily, and so basically it's kind of like a squeeze page.
Yeah, sure.
So I start building an inventory. I mean,
you don't have to share all these.
Yeah.
Things, you know?
So, but it's
people can meet with you. You can buy lunch.
But I literally have a list of buyers and sellers, and of almost 300.
Wow.
People, investors. You know, what is the math on that? So if you have 300, if everybody had on average $100,000, I think that's $30 million.
Nice.
And, you know, the interesting thing is, and you can tell the market that we're in now, is that I would say 99% of the people on the list that answered my ad, they want to buy something.
Yeah, they're ready.
They want to buy something, that's great. But the main thing I want to do is find sellers.
Yeah.
And there was, you know, 1% of that were sellers.
Hmm.
And out of that 1%, there was one deal I was interested in, and that's the one we got.
Nice.
Yeah. So it wasn't on the market.
Okay.
And so I was able to, you know, contact the seller and, you know, start a conversation, build a relationship, see what his needs were.
Yeah.
So we did that. So that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah, it's finding the deals, because
it's all very challenging. You know, I'm an addict, so I love doing it. But then at the end of it, you're like, oh my gosh.
Oh, it's a ton of work.
Yeah, it's like I need a year off, you know. It's stressful. I mean, that's the bottom line. But a lot of people in the apartment space, they may try their hand at it. You know, I tell this to everybody who comes and talks to me, and even my own kids that say, well, maybe I want to do that, Dad. And I say, well, maybe you don't. Yeah. Because it ain't sexy. Yeah. You know, when most of your calls, you know, and I have leasing agents and managers, but they call me and say, well, this happened, you know, what kind of hot water heater do we want to get or whatever. You know? Yeah. I mean, it's not like, you know, discussing what jet we're going to take somewhere. It's all, not yet. Or just, you know, upset people because there's been miscommunication or misunderstanding. And so it's a lot about relationships, you know. Okay. And so, but yeah, those are the calls you get. So a lot of people get out of the rental space because they're like, they're not. I don't want to deal with. They don't want to deal with landlords. But yeah, it's and that's kind of how I got out of it. I was burnt out because I was first level management and stuff like that when I was working with my brother. But those are the things that, you know, in hindsight, I was like, oh wow, like I stepped away from that because I was burned out. Mm-hmm. But there could have been more smarter things or wiser things to like remove myself from that stress of the day to day. Hire a manager, hire someone else, you know, there's leveraging. Should have leveraged that better. I was, you know, I didn't have any mentors, you know. Okay. You know. So you just went through. Yeah. So it all raw and just. nobody was doing what I was doing. I mean, there were some books and stuff like that, but they didn't talk about the day-to-day and how you handle this.
Yeah.
It's just kind of romanticized. But I still romanticize it because at the end of the day, I don't know any place where, I mean, when I made a lot of money selling, being a real estate agent, but that's the worst way to make money as an independent contractor. Yep. You pay the most tax.
Most taxes, yeah.
In multifamily, on average, if I bring in $100,000, my taxes after depreciation and even more so with other things you can do now, I maybe pay 10% of that income that I bring home because there's depreciation and all these great things that you can do in that space.
So you learned how to not avoid taxes, but pay better taxes or pay less taxes.
Yeah,
being in multifamily versus just going out and being an independent contractor.
Independent contractor, you're going to pay 30 to 50% of your income to the government.
Yeah, that's
so you could make $100,000, but then you bring home 50. And in the apartment space, if you bring home $100,000, I keep 90.
Wow.
So that's a big difference.
That's a huge difference.
And so, but still leverage. I obviously I'm still in the business. And one of the things I love, we're both with eXp Realty.
Yeah.
And to plug that, because we believe in it, it's a real thing. One of the things that I try to warn people, because the market we're in right now, nationwide, is just crazy, right?
Every state,
every realtor I know is busy, which is great. Make that money, but maybe stack it away a little bit. But the mistake I made, I was so narrow in what I was doing. It's in real estate and development. But then really, I thought I had all these different sources of income, but they're really all tied to the market. So I thought, well, we're doing fix and flips over here, and we're making this money. I'm doing my sales over here. We got this development, and I'm set.
Yeah.
But when the market turned, and 80% of my business for sales was investors and builders and fix and flippers,
disappeared.
80% of my income went away in sales. The fix and flips now, I can't sell that. I got to rent it out. It's going to cost me $500 a month. And then the development, the bank says, no more money. We're not going to send you more money. And so I realized real quick that I really didn't have multiple streams of income. And I was wishing I had a rental income, like multifamily, because, people still paid their rent and stuff during that time.
Yeah.
And actually there was, people were losing their homes and going and renting. They had to go, so there's more renters. So it actually that's a great asset class to get into, because during a downturn, you typically can survive it.
Do you think we're going to see that?
And thrive it. I do.
Yeah. Like in the next couple of years or before?
I mean, I think so. It all depends on what President Joe does and our government. Sure. So we would have seen a crash because of this COVID, except that we've been just pouring print money, like we just don't care. And so I mean, that pumps everything up. Everything up. And then we've had lack of inventory because people are afraid to sell their home. People have people come through their home, and then lack of inventory, supply, a lot of free money in the marketplace. People
low interest rates.
I mean, you got tons of money right now, man. Like, I'll be honest, I have tons of free money, and it's just like when COVID hit, I thought, oh God, here we go. And I mean, I actually reopened my foreclosure business. So I'm like, I'm going to be ready this time, and I'm going to make sure I have a chair when the music stops. Actually, I'm going to have 4. But then it was the exact opposite of what I thought. And that's because they're printing money and doing all this.
Yeah, so they're trying to keep it afloat, basically.
Yeah, so they're keeping it afloat. And so from what I know, and I don't study all this stuff, I listen to people that study it.
Sure.
But what they're going to do is, it sounds like the forbearance. So the biggest thing is, and this is the statistic I heard, is back in the peak of the crisis after 2009 was in 2010. In 2010, we had 2.7 million people in default.
Okay.
And I remember how bad that was. I mean, it was bad. It was the worst I'd ever seen in my life, in my sales career, or anything. Now we have 10 million people in default.
Wow.
And the only reason we don't have a bunch of foreclosures on the market or people flooding the market with, oh my gosh, I got to sell because I'm going to lose my house. Might as well sell it,
Yeah.
Is because there's this forbearance that's been granted by our government,
right? Yeah. Okay.
where it's not forgiveness.
Forgiven. No, it's just like
it's where they can. So they're saying
push it out.
Yeah.
Right?
So banks can't foreclose for 6 months, and then now 2 more months, and then now 2 more months. But from what I saw, what I understand is President Joe he's not extending it any longer.
Really?
Yeah, but he is, and this is not exactly, but you have like Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, HUD, and different types of loans. What he's doing is he's extended like 3 of those, and then one of them, which I don't know exactly which one that is, but if he's like, we're going to extend Freddie, Fannie, and HUD, but this, the small business loan, or what's another type of residential loan, we're going to allow you to start foreclosing. And so there's going to be a rollout of foreclosures rather than all at once.
Okay.
So and I think that's smart. I think that's smart on their part.
So they don't.
So it's not going to be
everybody's losing their house all at once.
And maybe we got 10 million people in default. Maybe half of them have figured it out and had other ways to make income. The restaurant owners, the retail owners, the mall owners. All this has been a rapid change. Where we were headed anyways, but COVID made it happen a lot faster.
Yeah.
We have these people in default. They're going to default on their house, so they're going to need to sell their house. And so if you do the numbers, we're going to go from, because real estate, as real estate salespeople, we know that it's kind of like it's a buyer's market if there's over 6 months of inventory, and it's a seller's market if it's less than 6 months.
And it's definitely less than 6 months.
And I think it's like 1 or 2 months right now.
Yeah, maybe in our specific market.
Yeah, in our specific market, but I think it's kind of it's nationwide. It's definitely a seller's market nationwide. From what I understand. That will change. So the numbers that I've heard, we're going to move to more like 10 months worth of inventory
because of all these foreclosures that are going to happen, bring homes to the market, and bring down the price. So if you are looking to sell, now is the time.
Now is the time to sell.
Now is the time to sell. So you can.
If you need to sell, and if you're in trouble, if you're struggling,
the trouble.
Yeah.
So that's
definitely,
point.
Especially if you're struggling to make your payments now, and you don't see a way out in the future, you need to sell right now. This is your best price.
Best time. Yep. Period.
So, and I'm not saying that just because we're in real estate sales.
No, it's just a fact. I was talking to she's a CFO of a big lending company on the East Coast, and she was a client, bought a second house here. She was saying that when they started to give all these, not forgiveness, but like pushing out paying their stuff, they're like, okay, they'll pay it in 4 or 6 months, whatever. They'll start repaying it. Mm-hmm. And she said they thought 80% of the people would start, and 20% of the people would probably just not do it. And she was scared. She said 80% of the people just haven't returned their calls, haven't got back to people. Like they're just not paying.
Wow.
And it's just a matter of time, so which is kind of a scary thing, but it's also reality. And so how are you gonna position yourself? Do you need to sell now? Do you need to start investing in the right thing? Like what, how are you gonna get through this or change? Or what are you gonna do?
That takes me back to if you're a real estate agent and going back to EXP. And just the reality and the beauty of one of the things I love about EXP, and I know you do too, is if you come to EXP and all you do is just continue selling real estate, you will build other sources of income, mm-hmm. and other things that will help you in a downturn. So speaking from experience, when your sales, decrease, if you had another source of income, would that help you? If you had another savings over here that you could tap into,
would that help? Yeah.
That might be the thing that changes everything.
Yeah.
And so I said earlier, I'm going to make sure I have 4 chairs. We'll see how that plays out. But I believe I do. And one of those chairs, or 1 or 2 of those chairs, is EXP.
Nice.
Yeah.
And for someone like you to say that is a big deal. And you're seeing big players across the country coming over. I mean, Grant Cardone, she's an EXP. That's a big deal. He's a big deal. And
what's the 10X?
Yeah, 10X. Yeah, this thing. It's going on right now. So we're
definitely going to 10X EXP.
Yeah.
Well, one of those things, and you could speak into also, because I proudly recruited Kyle to EXP.
He did.
Or I should say Attraction.
It was Attraction.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe you even called me first. But and you just called me about getting into real estate is how the conversation started.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Which I've had a lot of those conversations over the years. And that just organically happens. If you're in the business long enough, people see if you've been successful and they go, and somebody says, hey, you know, you look like you're doing well and you look like you're not very smart. And I could do this. What do you think? And, you know, so even before EXP, before I got a dime for attracting anyone, of course I would meet with them. And I probably attracted a dozen people into the business. Because one of the other guys that works with us now, he was 14 when he did an internship with me, Jeremiah, because he was interested in real estate.
Yeah.
You know, and then he ended up attracting me to EXP. But EXP is a beautiful thing because you have because most real estate agents, you know, you're making good money, but you know, as an independent contractor, you know, nobody's out there really helping you, so you're making all this money. Oh, I made $150,000 this year. And then you don't realize, well, I didn't.
Yeah, taxes.
That, you got to pay 40% taxes, and then you got to spend that money. You know, I bought the nice car and this and that. Yeah, I went out to sushi, but then you figure that, I better put money aside and all that. But it takes about 2, 3, 4. Because first you may need to spend that money because you don't care about next year or tax time. You got to feed your family today. So. But it takes a couple, 3, 4, 5 years. But then what happens to most agents, because I've never been to a real estate agent's retirement party.
Yeah, that's
because they usually haven't planned for it and they don't have that built in. Like a lot of times,
exactly.
If you work at a corporation or something, they'll have a 401k for you or something like that, a pension. Those are kind of don't exist anymore. But in the old days, people would get pensions. So most of the time, a lot of us realtors, we find ourselves also, you're 40, 50 years old, and you're like, if you ask them, when do you plan on retiring? It's going to be, 3 to 5 years from now. And then 3 to 5 years, you're asking, it's like in another 3 to 5 years, because we're kind of waiting for everything to line up, stars line up, and making good money. And now I have an extra $500,000 I can invest in something,
Yeah.
And that's just not reality.
Yeah.
But you can take the same person who's not planning ahead, put them in EXP. They know how to sell. They know how to make. They're a successful real estate agent. They know how to sell houses. They can with every commission with every commission check, you can buy take 5% of that and buy EXP stock at a 10% discount, and that's just automatic.
Nice.
And for every your first deal at the company, when you join the company, you get EXP stock. Every year after that, you get EXP stock. Everybody that you attract to the business, you get EXP stock on their annual first deal. If you are a great salesperson and you cap out and then you do over and above that, to a certain, you have to hit those levels, you'll get all your $16,000 cap back in stock.
Dang, yeah, and the stock went off this year. I mean, when I got in, it was at like $16, and then went up to like, what did it go up to? 160, and then they split it.
It's not 160 now.
Yeah, they split it. So I mean,
and there's no guarantees on what the price will be in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's a technology. It's called EXPI. It's public stock. If you're not in real estate, you can get it. I mean, it's doing really, really well. But yeah, I mean, I took 5% of my, and that's what attracted me to EXP. There's a lot of things, but I was like, man, if I can do this, and if you're looking to get into real estate or you are in real estate, it's like, hey, I can do one thing and I can create 3 streams of income. Selling real estate, you have the stock in the company. I put 5% of my earnings last year and I did the numbers. I put in $11,000 and I ended up making like 50 some, so, I mean, that's a crazy number just for not even thinking about it. It was just on the side. And then you have attracting agents. When you attract agents, you get, paid revenue share for that and all that kind of stuff. And there's guys in the company who are hanging out in Puerto Rico right now because taxes are better and they're doing really, really, really well. And just that cash flow, that revenue shares.
I don't know anybody in EXP that's not doing well.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, from my point of view as an investor and as someone who, I'm never going to have enough money to buy all the deals that I want. You have to partner with somebody. You have to have investors. And what's so cool about EXP, not only what I said, but we have the network. There's the collaboration with everyone else, which is designed into our model. You don't have collaboration at any other office that I'm aware of or that I've experienced.
30 plus years, right, in business.
Oh, no. I don't know. I think it was like 20 as far as sales. I think it's like 20 plus. Let's just say that. But yeah, I think it's been 30 as far as like since my sophomore year in college, and I started working with my brother. So I read my first real estate book in 1989.
Nice.
So I think that is more than 30 years, 32 years to be exact. So what was I saying? Oh, with EXP. Oh,
Collaboration.
So anyway, so I need other people, and I can bring value to them. But how great is that? I know all these people at EXP all over the nation, potentially all over the world, that we connect all the time through EXP World and Workplace and that sort of thing. And all these people have a ton of money.
Yeah. They don't maybe know what to do with it.
Yeah. And so,
or how to reinvest it.
Yeah.
And create cash flow.
And that's, if you can create income, businesses that stack cash, and then it might take you, it might take you a year or 2 or 3 to find a sweet deal. You're going to have the cash, and your buddy's going to have the cash. Your investor group will have the cash, if dealing within the realms of we're all at EXP kind of thing. Sure. So there's, to say that there's opportunity. I see the opportunity because, we've made great friends, great relationships within EXP. And, you start talking about what you do, what's your expertise. I do multifamily. I have people with a lot of money. And so, wow, let's go out and get a $20 million deal. Let's knock it down. Yeah, cool. Nice.
That's fun. So we're going to finish out a couple of these questions. So what's the biggest surprise you've had in the last few months, and why?
The biggest surprise with investments, or just
in general, in life investments?
Well, it wasn't the last few months, but I would say the whole COVID thing. And the whole COVID thing. And that was, wow. I mean, of course, we can all relate to that. What a surprise. And then how long it's lasted, and, with all the mandates and the restrictions on business. Yeah. And those are the things I hate because, the things where it's basically, because most of the time, if you look at your marketplace and you say, okay, here's the board game. Like, here's the board that you play the game on. What are the rules? And then you learn how to play that game. With COVID and everything, how there's government intervention, whether they think they're doing the right thing or not, all of a sudden it changes things. That was a scary thing to have a year-long moratorium on rental, like evictions.
Especially in your space. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, oh man, I just got back in this space and it's going to change. Mm-hmm. It hasn't changed in 30 years that I've seen. And then now you're going to change all these rules on me. We were able to pivot. And that's one great thing I love about this asset class. And then, reach out to tenants, build those relationships, actually connect with them more, see what's going on. So we were able to get through those bumps and be just fine. Actually, we've done better than we ever have. But, part of that, honestly, I think it could be just luck the way things, panned out. Yeah. I mean, if you're a restaurant owner and you've done well for 30 years, we know people that have done well for 30 years, and then all of a sudden the government doesn't allow you to run your business. I don't think there's any way to pivot out of that.
Yeah. I mean, that's hard. I was talking to a guy yesterday, and it's just,
you could be the best business owner.
He's a pillar in the community, and it's just, it's a constant battle with the restaurant industry. And it's just sad that, you could have someone living the American dream, coming out and building their business, being an entrepreneur, figuring out how to make it work, doing it for 20, 30 years, and then all of a sudden having to barely scrape by and try to figure out how to pay their employees and, everything else that comes with it. So it's just, it's
another reason to get, I would say in that situation, I'm against it. I'm pro business. I'm pro, personal responsibility. Yeah. And, let them make those choices. However, if you find yourself in that place, which I feel like I've been there, where all of a sudden you got pinched, like I said, being just an independent contractor and not having any other sources of income or investments and that sort of thing. It's a bad place to be. You can fight against the system, or you can just say, okay, you know what? How is the tax code written, and who does it benefit? Yep. And I'm going to go.
And how am I going to get into that?
I'm going to go do that. And if the government's against this sector, I'm going to move out of that sector. So you just have to go with the flow. And that's the thing I hate. It's kind of like, well, it's like you just pulled the whole board game off the table. Here's a new board game. And then you're like, what? That's very frustrating. And then you try to learn the new rules, and then they pull, and they said, no, we're playing this game now. And so that's frustrating.
Yeah.
And it just throws everything off. So, we could do a deep dive in that and where we are as a culture and that sort of thing. We're in the fourth turning, but we're not. We're not going to do that.
Okay. Another question is, if you had an extra $10 million, what would you do with it?
I would, if I had an extra $10 million, and I do, no, I'm just kidding.
You will.
I don't. But I would just keep investing in multifamily. I'd probably take you said 10 million?
10 million.
I'd take 1 million and I'd put it in crypto right now. That's what I would do.
All right.
And I'd take the other 9 million and put it into multifamily.
Nice. So you'd invest 100% of it.
What?
You would invest that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Because, I mean, if you went and spent...
It's like this. Well, I'll explain it.
Yeah.
I think you're going to say that. And that's something I learned from reading Robert Kiyosaki books, because he said, if you have a lot of people, you say you just got $100,000 out of the sky, they'll run out and buy a new car. Well, you just spent your money on a liability. Why not take that 100,000 and invest it in something? Because when you invest it, it's not spent.
No,
it's still there. It's there if it's a good investment. So like you put it in an investment like that, say it's spinning off $1,000 a month. Now take that income off your 100,000 and go buy a car on a payment plan.
Okay. Yeah.
You still have your 100,000 and you have your dumb car.
So you take that money and whatever chunk of money it is, and you invest it versus spend it, and you create cash flow, assets, not liabilities, and then you pay. Then you can go buy liabilities with that asset.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or if you want to grow even faster, start stacking up that income, saving that,
and then put it back into something else. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Depends how fast you grow.
And then last couple questions. How do you continue to stay on top of things within your industry?
I will say the older I get, the harder that is to stay on top of things. But it just requires diligence. For me, it's the technology. But the technology should be our friend. So I think it's highly important, especially for me in my 50s, to stay on top of what the new technology is, because it's such a benefit. I learned that with different industries that I've worked in. There's always a program out there or management software, like KV4 with EXP, which is our CRM that you can use. That's going to dramatically increase in your business and make it a whole lot easier and help you manage things. And so, in that, keeping up with technology, where you can be better than your competition. So reading books, watching videos, which, a lot of it's just watching videos, but, with YouTube and stuff. But just studying those different things. For me right now, I'm in I'm really excited about crypto. I can't say that I'm an expert at it at all. I can talk around it, but I'm still trying to understand the space. But
you got a 50-year-old who's investing in crypto.
Yeah. So you can see. I mean, I can see, even if it doesn't understand. Like right now, they're talking about NFTs and all this stuff, and I don't get it.
Yeah.
I'm like, who cares about these? I would never want one. I would never pay for one. But it doesn't matter what I want.
Yeah.
So it's like, is the marketplace demanding those and want those things? I say it is, absolutely. Yeah. So how can I position myself to get into that flow of income?
Yeah.
So, it's high risk, but I'm not taking all my money.
Sure.
So
yeah. I mean, with risk, it's reward. I've learned that you're not going to get anywhere or go anywhere without taking a risk. Actually just waking up in the morning and getting in your car is a risk. So, I mean, people just have to figure out how to risk and how to mitigate those risks and learn from the failures, is basically.
And I would say this, it's definitely speculation, crypto is definitely speculation, especially for me. And I'm speculating. I've done really well, but I haven't sold my coins.
Sure.
So I could still lose, but unlike in the past, I speculated with 100% of everything. And so when the speculation failed, when the market turned, I had nothing. Right now I have multifamily as my main source. It is, my main source of income. I have the EXP. I can sell real estate. I get rev share. I have stock that's building up. And with my extra cash, I put into crypto.
Nice.
So
yeah.
So it's not, even though it is a speculation, I'm not speculating on I'm not betting the farm.
Sure. Yeah. No, you figured out how to avoid that.
But it's pretty fun. So I'm learning a whole lot about crypto, and there's a lot of voices out there.
Yes.
And the bull market won't last forever, just like this real estate market won't.
No.
Maybe it'll last longer than we think. So, but we just all need to position ourselves to have some, something to fall back on.
Yeah. No, that's wise. That's really wise. Well, I appreciate your time. So if someone wanted to get a hold of you and ask questions about getting into real estate or ask questions about investing in multifamily, how would they do that? Like if they want to get a hold of you, you want to? For sure. Yeah. I mean, you could call me on my cell, I guess, at the 970-759-4930. I was thinking about my email, but it's just garth.schultheis@exprealty.com. That you may not, I guess maybe my name is at the top. It's at the top there, so you know how to spell my name. and you spelled it right. Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, it took me a couple times, but we got it. So awesome. Is there any questions that you feel like I missed or I didn't? I don't think so. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Cool. It was fun. Yeah, that was fun. So awesome. Well, this is the Bear Fruit Show, where we get to learn from other people about life, their successes, their failures, and really, figure out how to see the fruit on the tree and learn from them and stand on their shoulders, stand on their, their ceiling would be our floor. So hope you enjoyed your time, and talk to you guys soon. Peace out. Thank you, Garth. Yep. I don't know how to end this thing. Shazam, end. End broadcast.